Hello everyone, it's Duckfair07. Today we are playing Dimir NECRO Dominance. This card is obviously super powerful, but at the moment, since the Grief ban, sees absolutely no modern play. Why is that? So I brewed this Dimir list using the new hotness Psychic Frog plus Unearth plus Obcurrent Oculus, and this combo has been just so amazing, brutally powerful for me, won me a bunch of games so far that I really wanted to try it in combination with NECRO Dominance, despite NECRO Dominance hating your own graveyard. Okay, so Stitcher Supplier is a great enabler for Obcurrent Oculus. Together with Phyrexian Tower, it enables you to cast turn 2 Obcurrent Oculus, which is insanely powerful, but also in this deck it enables you to cast a turn 2 Necro Dominance, which is as powerful, of course. Okay, so I wanted to play additional free spell in this deck, and the Flare of Malice is only other option presented to you since the Grief is banned now. Okay, so Flare of Malice it works great in this deck. We got Stitcher Suppliers, which ups the black creature count. For the Flare, we got Orcish Bowmasters, Bogart Troller, Psychic Frogs, and for now, for me, it was enough to use for Flare of Malice without much problems. Okay, so once you have Necro Dominance on the deck, Necro Dominance is just so powerful that you will find a way. You'll draw a bunch of cards and you will mostly win game in a couple of turns, despite sometimes not being able to hardcast your Oculus or whatever. You will have so many cards in your hand, you will discard the rest of the Oculus and keep the ones you need, whatever. But the Oculus Frog Unearthed combo has been so powerful by itself. It creates a very powerful plan B, or just a normal plan which works often together with the Necro Dominance plan. By the time you cast Necro Dominance in this deck, you usually already have enough cards for the later turns to either reanimate Oculus with Unearthed or to hardcast Oculus from your hand. Okay, if not, you can strategize and play it in a different way. Strategize until you have enough cards in the graveyard to hardcast your Oculus before going for the Necro. Okay, so Soul Spikes, Flare of Malice. Also, now we have 8 free cards in this deck, which enable us, let us have more cards which we can play on the end step once we draw all these cards. Also, Frog is great, obviously with Necro Dominance. You don't have to just discard those cards, but you can discard it to the Frog ability and grow your Frog to very big and try to kill your opponent that way, often making like a crazy big frog, like a 2020 frog, and one-shotting your opponent is not is nothing strange. Okay, so that is it. Let us see the sideboard. Consign to memory is a big gain when you go blue with your Necro Dominance deck. I have only 2 in the sideboard, but I can see adding 3 if necessary. But I decided to split with 2 Totsis to consign. In the sideboard, Toxic Deluge, great against Boros. Fulminator Mage, great against Landex, together in combination with Unearthed. I find Pitting Needle great, my latest attack when battling the Charbelcher decks or Yagmo decks, stuff like that, where Pitting Needle is necessary. Also, Pitting Needle is super good against Ring. And this deck plays 4 Bowmasters, 2 Sheldred and 2 Pitting Needles in the sideboard, and also we have Totsis, we have Consign, and all of this makes it have very good matchup against the Ring decks. Also, Necro Dominance you can play it very early in this deck, as early as turn 2. It can create a bunch of card advantage before even opponent is able to play their Ring. Okay, so before we go to the gameplay, I want to remind you of my Decktionary profile. I keep 3 tiers, subscription tiers here. In the medium tier, I have Dominzu Sideboard Guide, Mardu Energy Sideboard Guide, freshly updated just last week through the newest meta with the newest changes to the list and the completely rearranged sideboard plans. These 2 guides are in the medium tier, and I also have Mardu Bombardment Sideboard Guide. This is built similar to Mardu Energy, more focused on bombardment, also updated like a month and a half ago. I got also one freshly updated newest Cyberguard Dimir Frog, which is situated in the guide tier for now. Together with the large tips and tricks article on energy and zoo, 5,500 words on the energy and zoo in the current meta and its most common matchups. Okay, so that is it for now. We can now go check out the gameplay. Okay, so in the match 1, I was playing second, keeping a decent hand, couple of pushes, couple of bowmasters and necro dominance. My opponent starts with orderly plaza, but they reveal Kahira, so that means they're probably just blue-white control. Okay, so I decide just to pass this turn and wait to flash in the Orcish Bowmaster, but opponent goes for the Teferi on their turn. So I play the Bowmasters and opponent decides to bounce my Bowmaster, which is okay for me here. I get to kill the Teferi. I decide to go for the Survey Land and play the Stitcher Supplier and go for the Unearth and bring back the Psychic Frog. My opponent plays Temporary Lockdown, exiles all my stuff. So now I go for the Necro Dominance and all my cards are good, so I didn't want to draw too much. I just discarded the push and the extra land to keep a very strong hand of with Sheldred, Oculus. So you can notice here that I have Necro Dominance on the field, I have Oculus in hand, and I'm able to hardcast my Oculus. I didn't want Oculus to get countered here, so I decided to go for the Frog first, plus hold the Bowmaster, of course. Opponent finds the Breeding Pool and goes for Prismatic Ending on a Frog. So this means end of turn I can go for the Orcish Bowmasters and ping my opponent, start attacking them. On my turn, cast the Oculus, attack them for 2, cast the Oculus, and again, in this moment I would probably go for the cast Oculus, but I have Sheldred, which at this moment is basically the only card better than Oculus for me. So I decide to go for the Sheldred, gain some life, draw some cards. I could go for even more, but I decided to go just for 4. I find a couple of Soul Spikes and deal 4 to my opponent. I have another spike in my hand, which is very close to lethal already. Okay, so now I go for the Oculus, exile all cards from my yard, play my Oculus, and end of turn draw more cards to play the Soul Spike. Okay, I didn't go all in crazy, just I didn't go all in crazy in the first 2 times with the Necro Dominance, but this time my opponent was on 8 and I already had 1 Soul Spike in hand, so I only needed a second Soul Spike to kill them, so I went like for a full draw with Oculus on the field as another threat that kills them next turn if they don't find a solution here. And yeah, that was too much and I found the Soul Spikes, so got the easy kill there. So let's check out game 2. Okay, so in the game 2 we can see my sideboarding plan. You can see that I decided to remove all of the removals, so all Fatal Push flares go out. All my removal go out and brought in some useful cards. Okay, so opponent has Days Undoing in the yard, so obviously they're playing some Narset stuff. They go for the Orim's Chant, so I can't attack this turn, can't cast my Necro Dominance this turn, unfortunately. Okay, opponent untaps, only plays another land, and passes the turn. I crack the Spell Bomb, just to draw a card. Okay, so here First I go for the Psychic Frog attack, see what happens there. Then if necessary, I can go for something like sack the frog to cast Thoughtseize plus Necro Dominance. But opponent only goes for the subtlety, so I decide just to discard 2 on my frog to kill the subtlety and play the Necro Dominance since my opponent is tapped completely. So I draw a bunch of cards, I go for the Soul Spike and discard the rest of the extra cards on the Psychic Frog. Okay, my opponent plays the One Ring. I now have double Bowmasters in hand, which is obviously great against the One Ring. Can't attack this turn, but I can draw a bunch of cards again. And yeah, so I go for, I find a third Bowmaster, that is brutal. I could sack like the army token to go for even a third Bowmaster, but what I wanted to do here was mostly just hold the consign to memory for their turn. And on my turn I have Pitting Needle, I can play Pitting Needle named One Ring. And yeah, okay, so opponent goes for Solitude here, exiles the Cosmic Rebirth. I use the mana I saved for Consign to counter that ability. So my opponent taps the One Ring and takes 4 from the Bowmaster, doesn't find the Mass Removal, so that is easy game for the Necro Dominance. So let's check out very easy matchup against most of the ring decks, I would say. Okay, so let's check out match 2. Okay, so in the match 2, playing first, I have a 2 lands. Bogart Troller is a land, so I can go for a turn 1 Surveil, turn 2 play the Frog, then turn 3 either go for Oculus or Necro Dominance. If I find the third land, of course. So I go for a frog first. Unfortunately, my opponent has the removal, but I go for Flare in response. And I play the Stitcher Supplier, so I block here. I have a bunch of cards in the yard. So at this moment, even if I play the Necro Dominance, I still can unearth the Oculus, I can still hardcast the Oculus, but unfortunately, as you can see in this situation, I was stuck on mana and I did not have mana to play either Necro Dominance or Oculus, so that was game. I had to concede this one. That was game 1 against Energy, so I had to win the remaining 2 games to win this match. Let's see how that went and let's see how what was my sideboard plan. Okay, so one Oculus goes out, one Unearth together with Oculus, one Flare of Malice on one Soul Spike to fit some cards from the graveyard, from the sideboard, mostly Graveyard Hate. Okay, so opponent goes for Ragavan, I Bowmaster the Ragavan, and this time the opponent is mana screwed. So I go for the Psychic Frog, opponent tries to play the Ocelot, I decide to kill Guide of Souls in response, then Bowmaster their Ocelot Pride, and yeah, opponent quickly concedes next turn. That is the game. Okay, so let's check out game 3. Deciding game of this match. Let's see how that went. Okay, so I have the Supplier, I have the Toxic Deluge. Toxic Deluge obviously works great against my opponent's deck. So I decide to go for the Swamp plus the Supplier here. My opponent decides not to attack into Supplier. So I wait, stay back, wait for them to do whatever, then cast the Deluge, kill all their stuff. That was my game plan at this point. After I resolve the Deluge, then I can play like Oculus or other stuff, whatever. I had 2 Swamps and my opponent resolves the Blood Moon and the One Ring. but they don't have planes at the moment. I have 2 swamps and I have the Bowmaster, and my opponent taps the One Ring. I go for the Bowmaster in response, dealing 2 more. And at this point, my opponent decides to concede. So Bowmaster is, in case you don't know, it's a very quick clock against the One Ring decks. And my opponent will be probably forced to take damage from it next turn. I will be able to play the Bogart Roller as additional threat, and this will be a very quick clock. It's like a 2-turn clock. In case they don't find a solution, but my opponent unnecessarily decides to concede immediately, they should probably stay in game for a couple more turns just in case, although I was in a slightly better situation. Okay, so that's it. Let's check out game 3, and we will check out the defeat in the end, and we will go through the wins of this league first. Okay, so can't keep a single Pyrexian tower, so I mulligan here to decent 6, put Flare in the graveyard, and here I can go for a turn 2 Psychic Frog. I'll unearth already in hand. Unearth works great with Psychic Frog. You will either deal damage with Frog next turn, or you will unearth it. Okay, so I go for a Fatal Push, their Frog, but in response, opponent discards 2 Bloodgusts, which means they're also probably playing something like a flare deck with maybe with Satoru's, stuff like that. Okay, opponent plays a land, brings back their Bloodgusts. I have Orcish Bowmaster in my hand, which works well against that game plan. I go for Soul Spike, put it in the yard, and I kind of want to wait for them to crack that delta before I go for the Bowmaster, their Bloodgust. And here I go for crack another fetch and hardcast my Oculus. Oculus also fills my yard, helps me find more targets for my unearths. So in their upkeep, I find a Bowmaster, but I decide to keep a Bowmaster on the field. Okay, so I go for double block here, despite it's very easy for my opponent to bring back the Bloodgusts. So they bring back the Bloodgusts and they play the Gaze and they find the Vengevine deck. So I think they're playing my build from my channel, recent build from my channel, Sultai Crabwine, playing the Oculus and the Souls of the Lost in the Sultai Vengevine shell. Okay, so yeah. I go for a lot of damage here, and then I go for Unearth on the Bowmasters. Again, so in this matchup, it's a great news for me that I have four Bogart Trollers in the main. It works great against a lot of decks that are really popular right now. Okay, so I go for the attacks with Oculus. My opponent kind of has to block. They're really low on life, and one Bowmaster can kill them. And here I go for the Bogart Roller, exile their graveyard, exile the Oculus, exile the Vengevine, and the Bogart Rollers in the main were just very good in this situation. And yeah, my opponent concedes on the second Bogart Roller. That is the game. Okay, so let's check out game 2. Also, let's check out the sideboarding plan. Now, together with Bogart Rollers, I also have the Nihil Spellbombs. And yeah, 2 Bogart Rollers already in hand. So I start off with the Nihil Spellbomb, and my opponent also starts off with the Leyline of the Void. And yeah, okay, so they go Vengevine Yard, play the Gaze. And yeah, I decide to crack the Spellbomb there. disable them from using the gaze again. And I also have a Troller, but I decide to just go for the Troller and start attacking them. My opponent didn't present much threats at the moment. Okay, so at the moment I'm struggling with blue mana. I go for the attack with Troller, and now I have to decide what to do with the Psychic Frog. Maybe it was better to just use the Soul Spike before, but I decide to go for the Flare and keep the Soul Spike in hand, and still struggling with blue mana. I have Toxic Deluge in hand to take care of their board if they go wide, but at the moment not necessary, just waiting for the blue mana, taking a couple of hits with Bloodgusts and Supplier, that's fine. They go for the Unearth on Oculus, which makes it a good time to sweep the floor with the Toxic Deluge. I have to lose 5 life to do so. And okay, so in response, my opponent, flips the Souls of the Lost. That is the neat trick. Souls of the Lost can get really large, and I had to use the Soul Spike to finish off the Souls of the Lost before it gets too big from the Supplier ability. And the opponent finds a second Oculus, hard cast it, and unearth another Oculus from hand, and that was just too much in a situation where I just was not able to find another blue source, so that was a game over. Okay, let's check out game 3. Okay, so I have a Spell Bomb, I have a Bogart Roller, I have Unearth. That is a pretty strong start, but I had kind of the nut start here, incredibly nut start. So imagine just turn 2 Oculus plus Nihil Spell Bomb against Graveyard deck. That's just super brutal. I don't think there are many decks that can beat this, especially graveyard dependent decks. And I also had a double fatal push, and yeah, this is just complete insanity. Okay, so I make another token, and here I have another push for a second frog. That's just, yeah, it's just brutal. And here I attack for 9, and I have a Sheldred to finish things off on turn 4. Absolutely insane start. And yeah, that was the win against Sultai Crabwine. It would be a hard game in this match, but I had the absolute nuts in this one. Okay, so let's check out match 4. See how that went. I think in this match I was playing against Energy. This is decent hand. If I can find a frog, then it can be really strong. And here it is, frog from the top. I put Soul Spike in the yard, but with this hand I can go turn 2 frog, discard Oculus, turn 3 go Bowmasters on the Ocelot, and reanimate Oculus. But yeah, I decide to go for the Bowmasters immediately before Ocelot goes crazy, because I can still go like a turn 3 frog plus discard Oculus, reanimate it. So it was again a good start. Okay, so here I go for it. Frog discards Oculus, unearth Oculus, and yeah. They do have Bombardment plus Ajani, which is also just incredibly powerful. But yeah, I also have a very powerful thing going on my part, so we will see what will happen here. Okay, opponent goes 4 damage on the Psychic Frog. I discard 2 cards. I have like NECRO in hand, so I don't really care that much about losing cards from my hand. And I block their creature here, so they have to sack another to kill a frog, and then they also have to sack their entire board to deal with my stuff, I decide to uh, go down to 5, which is a bit risky at this point. Definitely a bit risky since my opponent has a bombardment and Ajani, and yeah, they find a bolt plus creature plus Ajani trigger to do the final damage, but I didn't really have that much choice, so I had to go for it, and it didn't work this time, so we'll have to again settle it in the next 2 games. Okay, again, I have Toxic Deluge post board, which is obviously good. And so one flare goes out, one necro dominance goes out, some soul. I only left one soul spike in. Okay, that was my game plan. Here I started off with Stitcher Supplier, Bowmaster there, Ocelot Pride, a great start here. And I attacking for 3 here. I can go for the necro dominance immediately. I sacrifice the Stitcher Supplier, fill the graveyard, and play the spell bomb, so I can even just hardcast almost. I can hardcast Oculus without any problems, and my opponent also plays like Static Prisons, which can exile my Necro Dominance, which further makes it easy to like fill your graveyard to cast more Oculus or whatever. As you can see here, I cast Oculus, and Oculus is just so super amazing against Boros. It's the easiest way to win against Boros is just to slam the Oculus and then untap and kill some creatures. Okay, opponent exiles the Oculus with a second prison. But I have a hand full of cards. I have also, they are all good cards, and I can play another Oculus if I want. So I decide to go for the second Oculus. Oculus also helps fill my yard further. Okay, so opponent now goes for the One Ring. In response, I exile their graveyard. But they're down on 9. They're down on 9, taking damage from the One Ring. And I also put the Sheldred on the field, which alone just first they take 2 from the Sheldred. If they tap the One Ring, they take 4 more. And then they have to deal with double Oculus. I have double Oculus on the field. A second one is manifested, so that's basically impossible. And yeah, opponent concedes. That is the match. Sorry, that is the game. Was that game 2? I think that, yeah, that was game 2, and we will now check out the game 3. Okay, this hand is also pretty good. I decide to go lead with the Survey Land, Orcish Bowmasters on the top. I already have one in the yard, so I decide to graveyard it. I'm looking to find a second land. Here I go for a turn 2 a frog. That is always a good play. My hand is great. I have Necro, I have Bowmasters, I have Fatal Push, and it seems like my opponent doesn't have much right now. I'm not sure what I did here, but I decided against going for the Necro Dominance this turn. Instead, I went for the Supplier. And yeah, here I discard Necro Dominance, discard the Push, and keep my Frog alive. I also discard the Toxic Deluge. It didn't seem necessary in a situation like this. And now they go Frog on my they go Bolt on my Frog to finish it off, but I don't mind all that. And in this situation I can now play the Necro Dominance, but I find the Oculus, which is even better, and I also have a Flare of Malice backup in all this time. Okay, so opponent goes for Gyro Souls and a Johnny. Before they make a cat token, I Flare of Malice there, Ajani, so they can't flip it. And now I am untapping, attacking, and I can play the NECRO. But again, I decided against even playing the NECRO, and again just decided to exile their Flage and keep Oculus on the field. And again, I'm keeping Flare of Malice, and I had an option to either kill Gyrosouls or kill Giganta. I decided to kill Gyrosouls, and now I finally played that Necro Dominance. Continue attacking, now drawing a bunch of cards. Didn't draw a bunch, I just draw 5. I'm already satisfied with the situation on my side of the field. I have Flare, I have Bogart Roller, I can exile their yard. So the Flage and big creature is my main concern right now, and I have like Bogart Roller and Flare of Malice to deal with both, so I'm in an excellent situation. As you can see here, I go for the Bogart Roller ability, exile, play the Flare of Malice, exile their entire graveyard, and continue attacking, and still I have Necro on the field, draw 3 more cards, and yeah. Now I go for Surveyor. Now I go Survey, put another Bogart Roller on the bottom, play the land, play another yeah, what I did here was to flip the Sheldred, and the Sheldred flipped dealt 4 plus 2 damage on their upkeep is lethal, plus also Sheldred of course works great with my Necro Dominance, so that was why I paid the 4 mana here. And the Sheldred works great with my Necro Dominance, gaining me life here, and at this point I have the lethal, opponent can't do anything about it, so that is the lethal, and that is the match against Energy. Okay, so we will now check out the last match of this league. The only game I lost in this league. So we can see here. Yeah, it was actually funny. I loved this game. It was excellent game, but it's really funny that the only game I lost in this league was actually to Dimir Fairies. The actual Dimir Fairies, and this build was quite good. Can't say anything about it. It was the build was quite good. I liked it. It almost made me want to try it. Okay, so they have Sleep Cursed Fairy, and I decide to go Bowmaster end of turn, but they have the Spell Snare. So I decided to go end of their turn, try to Fatal Push, play the mana for the Ward ability, and yeah. Opponent uses the counterspell, but I find another push on my turn. Again, pay the mana, finally kill the fairy. It's not that easy to kill it. I'm not sure why I didn't play the Stitcher Supplier here. Oh yeah, I wanted to go for the Surveil land, of course. So I wanted to go for the Surveil in this situation. Finding something like Unearth on the top can be game winning in a situation like this. Okay, so I go for the Stitcher Supplier now. I have a Bowmasters, so I go for the second Supplier. Trying to find some of my strong spells like a Frog or Oculus in the graveyard. Don't have it for now. But I have the Bowmaster here, kill the Fairy Rock token, start attacking them. They're taking damage from the Bitter Blossom, so with this amount of creatures on the field plus Soul Spike, that's a decent pressure. So I go for the Bogart Roller here, another 3/1 attacker, exiling their graveyard. Soul Spike in my hand can end the game, help end the game easily. They're also losing a lot from the Bitter Blossom every upkeep. And yeah, so now I find the Oculus, also I go for the attacks. opponent bounces one creature, trades with other, and now I go for Oculus, and Oculus is a big threat at the moment. Yeah, my opponent has the borrower to bounce a second one, so it's still a very interesting race. And yeah, here I go for the attacks, and my opponent didn't block there. They only had one blocker anyway, and they're losing life from Bitter Blossom. So in their upkeep, I went for the Soul Spike, for the lethal. So that was game 1. So I was actually leading 1-0 in this match, looking very good, thinking like probably gonna win against Fairies, right? But yeah, the Fairies had a super strong performance in the next 2 games. We can see here that I didn't board much, just one Soul Spike, one Earth. It's not like you actually prepared to face Dimir Fairies in your everydays modern leagues. Okay, so here I go again for the Fatal Push on the Sleep Curse Fairy. I forgot, I can't remember right now. Did I do any mistakes in this game? Maybe I should have gone for like Sheldred this turn, make them use counter on the Sheldred instead of the Necro Dominance. Maybe that was better, probably. Yeah, I think that was probably better. Okay, now I went for the Sheldred, but yeah, they had another counter, so it didn't really matter because they had 2 counters there, and yeah, their hand was pretty good against my hand in this game. Okay, so maybe it was a mistake that I didn't board in the Nihil spell bombs, but I didn't really see the Snapcaster in the first game, so there was no way for me to know that they played the Snapcaster, so yeah. Here opponent also has a spell snare for my frog, and I top deck Bowmaster, which was actually pretty decent top deck right now. So I go try to finally kill their Bowmaster, but opponent lets me kill the Snapcaster, but draws 2 in response with Archmage Charm. And but yeah, now I am the attacker, and I can even hardcast the Soul Spike if I need to. I have removal, I have Soul Spike, but what I really want here is like spells like Unearth or Frog. Okay, I kill their click. They decide to leave the Soul Spike in my hand. Yeah, okay, so I continue attacking. Opponent is down on 12. They have only 2 cards in hand. I draw a Psychic Frog for a turn, and at this moment I was thinking that I'm in a really favorable position. But yeah, here now my opponent goes for Brazen Borrower bounce plus a Psychic plus attack. I go for a Psychic Frog, but they have counterspell, so I cast another frog. Continue attacking my opponent. They're now down on 9. So maybe it was better for me here to trade. But I felt like I would rather just use the Soul Spike next turn. Yeah, unfortunately, my opponent's top deck was Snapcaster, which was probably the best top deck for the opponent. And yeah, so I decided to trade with Borrower and Frog. Then top deck another land, and then top deck another land, which obviously didn't work that well for me. And now I was only at 3 life, which is pretty low. I decided to do the trade with the opponent. But again, my opponent had a better draws. Another Snapcaster was really good, and I mean, Soul Spike here actually decent, putting them down on 2, and I go up on 5, and they have to use the removal on my token. But unfortunately, my draw here was only another land, and Necro Dominance from top in situation where it's not really good, and the opponent finds a Spell Sutter Sprite to finish me off. So that was a game for them, very close game for them in game 2, and let's check out game 3. Okay, so I have 2 lands, have double Bowmasters. Bowmasters can kill a bunch of stuff from their deck, so I decide to keep that. Okay, so I shock in the Watery Grave to play the Bowmasters. I was thinking about keeping the Bowmasters here after they played their creatures, but I decided just to go for it. I played the Unearth. I already have one in the yard. I decided to play the Bowmaster and just try to attack them, try to start attacking them, pressure them a bit. So first I go, they're already on 14, I'm attacking here them down on 12. And I have Soul Spike in hand, and you saw how Soul Spike won me game 1. Okay, opponent has counterspell for my frog. At this point I have 5 cards in the yard, very close to casting the Oculus. I'm waiting for them to play some creature so I can flare it. But unfortunately it's when dealing click, which can discard my Oculus, but they decide not to do that, but let me play the Oculus, which was a bit weird, definitely. But yeah, it's because they had a really great solution for Oculus. I would say no other deck has this. Just 4 Brazen Borrowers in their deck to bounce Oculus whenever they want. And yeah, now I was in one of the rare situations where Oculus gets stuck in my hand. This doesn't happen a lot, but yeah, it was one of those games, and now my opponent is attacking for 6. That's a strong clock. But I find a Stitcher Supplier there. I was able to play my Oculus. And yeah, amazingly, opponent counters my Oculus with Spell Stutter Sprite. Okay, but I already have enough cards to play Oculus again next turn. But they have many flyers. All their creatures have flying, and yeah. So now I go for the attack. I play the flare. Sacrifice the supplier, kill their borrower, play the Oculus, which is another flyer blocker, but my opponent also has a counterspell for the second Oculus, and that is too much, so they have a kill there with the Curse Fairy, and they still have 4 cards in their hand, which it was amazing this turn. They had a super strong hand, just like counter the frog, bounce the Oculus, then continue attacking, pressuring me with Sleep Cursed Fairy, then Spell Sutter Sprite my Oculus, and then counter spell my second Oculus. It was just too much. They kind of had a brutal hand this game, and I was really impressed how good this Dimir Fairies work. It's obviously not a tier 1 deck, but it seems like it can play like pretty decently. Yeah. Okay, so that is it. That's all for today. That is the entire league. As funny as it sounds, I lost the only game I lost. The reason why I didn't get a trophy was Dimir Fairy build, a very good build. And yeah, I was impressed with that. It was a fun game, a fun match, fun to watch, fun to play. And but overall, this deck played out amazingly. A lot of situations when I had Necro dominance on the field and I was still able to cast the Oculus from my hand, or I had Unearth in hand and Oculus already in the graveyard. So I didn't, through the two leagues I played, it didn't come up this not being able to cast the Oculus thing. It didn't come up too often because I would either have Necro Dominance on the field, enabling me to draw a bunch of other cards, play other stuff, or I would already have enough cards in the yard thanks to the supplier, or the fetches, or the surveils, and the other spells to just hardcast the Oculus. And that's it. Okay, so the things I would consider here is maybe trimming down to 3 Flare of Malice. I often found myself boarding out the 4th one, so you could trim the 3rd Flare of Malice, possibly add 3rd Sheldred. You could like probably trim Unearth, trim 4th Oculus, or trim 4th Unearth. That are the slots I feel like are probably like the flex slots of this build. I would say like these 3 cards are my like flex slots in this build. I really like everything else, really love everything else. It played out amazingly for me, and the cards I would like to add are probably like a 3rd Sheldred, and maybe I don't know, there is a lot you can add, like another land, or you can add more removal, or you can even add Totsis. There are definitely some options, but I really like these 57 in the main. I really like this 57, so you could possibly I think the land count was nice so far. You could also add another 2 1-mana black creatures, which work well with Phyrexian Tower, enabling you to turn 2 Oculus or turn 2 Necro. That was my consideration. Just do it like this, like keep 4 Oculus and just add 2 more 1-mana black creatures. That's something I wanted to try next. Just cut the 4th Unearth, 4th Flare of Malice, to either add 3rd Sheldred or a 5th 5-mana creature, or something like that. So that is something I wanted to try next, but didn't find time yet. But I was overall really happy with this build. As you could see in this league, it played really impressive against Boros. Even after losing the game 1, I was still able to win the remaining 2 both times. And overall, Necro Dominance Oculus combo is obviously super strong, wins so much games. And now we also, in the same deck, you have this Necro Dominance together with the Flare of Malice, Soul Spike doing the crazy powerful stuff as well. And I think this is a well-rounded build which supports both of these strategies. And yeah, okay, so that is it for today. Thank you for watching. Friendly reminder to click like, click subscribe, let me down your comments. Which 1-mana creature would you add to this build? It should probably be a black creature. So in the past, people often played some other 1-mana creatures in the Necro Dominance builds. There are some options. I'm interested in what in suggestions from the viewers. Okay, so that is it. That was the only loss. Again, as funny as it sounds, the only loss preventing me from trophy was to very impressive Dimir Fairies build, Tribal Fairies. Okay, so that's it for today. Again, thank you for watching and goodbye.